Okay, this is about how to reduce pain of arthritis and diabetic neuropathy. Starting out with rule number one is improve blood flow. Anything in your body functions better with good blood flow. Helps heal injuries, inflammation, you name it. Everything is better with good blood flow. Avoid all animal foods. Animal foods are a disaster. They cause tons of inflammation. They impair blood flow. All the fat, especially, leads to decreased oxygen arriving at the tissues. There's other problems with it as well. We'll go through some of them. Avoid all oils. All oils are bad. They tend to predispose to blood sludge. I know some people like omega-3 supplements. I doubt the benefits of that. That's a complex subject. I've talked about omega-3s elsewhere. I wouldn't take them. That's my personal opinion. Okay, avoid sodium. It's a vasoconstrictor, decreases blood flow. You don't want that. You want good blood flow. Increase your vasodilators. That means, eat your plant foods. You get P for plant, P for potassium. Magnesium's right in the center of chlorophyll. You eat plants, you're going to get your magnesium. Salads help to increase nitric oxide vasodilators. You want to avoid mouthwash. Your mouth is a site that helps lead to the production of nitric oxide. And F- toothpaste also impairs those bacteria and the process. So you don't want that. Get sunshine. It causes a systemic increase in nitric oxide. Try to keep the area warm, whatever it is. That improves blood flow. Avoid excessive psychological stress equivalents. Things like caffeine raises the same hormones. Corticosteroid medications if you can. Sleep deprivation elevates the same stress response. So all of those things will decrease blood flow to your joints and could potentially worsen your arthritis. So learn to manage that as best you can and avoid caffeine would be my advice. Avoid tobacco and alcohol. I would also say avoid MSG and MFG, so the processed foods, because it gets you addicted to foods. You want to walk more. That'll increase nitric oxide vasodilator. One special comment on diabetic neuropathy is that it's not just the diabetes. If you're doing things to lower insulin resistance, so have better insulin sensitivity, that'll improve. But just having better blood flow, because a lot of the problem with atherosclerosis is the diabetes-related microvasculopathy, the atherosclerosis, the high-fat diet causing blood sludge, rouleau formation. So once you get better blood flow to those neurons, they'll have a good chance to heal. And diabetic neuropathy symptoms often improve dramatically. So what a great thing. You're simultaneously improving insulin sensitivity and decreasing your risk of diabetic neuropathy pain by lowering your dietary fat intake. There's a big benefit to doing that. Okay, avoid obesity. All arthritis is worse with obesity. So just eating a low-fat vegan diet, you're unlikely to be fat. A thinner body puts less weight on the joints. Starches are the best way to satisfy hunger, especially the low-fat starches. The lower the dietary fat, the more likely you're going to get skinny. The fat you eat is the fat you wear, from John McDougall's quote. He's real famous for saying that. So minimize your intake of dietary fat. It's easy to do. Rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes are great because they're very low in fat. They're like the lowest fat starches. The fat, even if you're not obese, just having high blood lipids will increase arthritis pain. It has a tendency to do that. Animal protein increases blood lipids. A billion out of a billion rice eaters are skinny. I mean, talk about a big sample size. A lot of these studies where you see some new product done with just that product or research, that's funded by industry, though I wouldn't even consider those types of studies. Avoid external estrogens. They call these exogenous estrogens. Those are things that you get from, and there's multiple ways to be exposed to them. One of the most common ones is in drinking water. That's why you want a carbon water filter. They'll activate something called the PPAR gamma fat switch, like in the hypothalamus arcuate nucleus, that tells your body you're pregnant. So you need to gain weight to store weight for the baby. Elevated estrogen levels are characteristic of pregnancy. So that's like a birth control pill. She doesn't ovulate. So anyways, the point is you want to lower your external estrogen exposure so that you don't have this PPAR gamma fat switch activated. That'll help you to lose weight. So my advice would be to also avoid excessive cosmetic products and deodorants, which tend to have estrogenic preservatives in them. There's a whole bunch of things that will increase estrogen levels. I got a separate video on that. Female Problems is called. And there's a lot one can do to lower their estrogen levels. Okay, next thing is how much percent fat is present in different foods for weight loss. So oils are the worst, 100% fat. Nuts got tons of fat. I don't like them. Flaxseed, I don't like them. Soy, they got a lot of fat. All the animal products are bad. Even oatmeal. Oatmeal is actually a good food, but it's got more fat than a lot of the other starches at 16%. Quinoa is near behind at 14%. Of the beans, garbanzo's got a little more fat, for example, than lentils are way down here at 3%. Black beans 4%. Green beans and peas 5%. Fruits are really nice. They tend to have about 5% fat. And then incredible white rice, potatoes, and sweet potatoes are all around 1% fat. So you'll get skinny. You tend to eat a lot of those. You're likely, much more likely to end up getting skinnier if that's what you want. Most of us do. Okay. Next thing, rule number 3 on how to decrease arthritis pain and diabetic neuropathy is avoid inflammation. Leaky gut causes inflammation. Leaky gut can lead to autoimmune disease. And even if you don't have autoimmune disease, you can still have a lot of inflammation with leaky gut. So I got a whole video on the checklist of things that cause leaky gut, but here's just some of the most common ones. Meat, oils, chlorine, antibiotics, excessive stress, herbicides, pesticides. By eating organic food, you minimize your intake of herbicides and pesticides. I actually think that's significant. And people say, well, organic's too expensive. Yeah, well, it's not the most important thing to eat organic, but it helps. And if you're eating starches are relatively cheap, even if they're organic. So that's another advantage, too. You know, I've called it my Spartan diet. It's really cheap. And it's simple. You only have to boil water. I mean, it's as simple as it gets. And I'm not the only one who eats like that. Look at Ruth Heidrich, okay? She lives like in Hawaii or something. If you live in Hawaii, you know, fruits are more available to you. And I love eating fruits, but fruits, if you're not living in like a real tropical place, they're a little more expensive, certainly, okay? Meat is associated with postprandial endotoxemia, meaning that gram-negative bacteria endotoxin like LPS, lipopolysaccharide, can get into the blood a little bit after eating these high-fat, especially animal product meals. That's associated with inflammation, okay? Meat has more heme iron. More iron is absorbed from the heme iron of meat, and over time, a person will have a tendency to get iron overloaded in their body, and they'll start to leak more iron into the blood. That's usually estimated by their ferritin going up. Iron overload can lead to ferrous redox cycling, where the iron goes back and forth between Fe2 plus and Fe3 plus, and it can give off oxygens in that process, leading to production of reactive oxygen species and oxidative stress, and that can cause tissue damage. I got a whole 6 other lectures on iron, and I got other lectures on oxidative stress if you're curious about the details with that. Bottom line is just avoid being iron overloaded. Okay, PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acid vegetable oils. They're associated with lipid peroxidation, and tissue damage occurs from that related inflammation. It can damage plasma membranes in multiple different locations in the body. Meat is associated with xenosialitis. They're sialic acids. They're like on the glycocalyx, outer external glycoproteins of a cell, and there's different ones in meat than in humans' bodies. So the sialic acids from meat can trick the intestinal lining cells into thinking that these things are okay to absorb and put on the human cells, but they don't fool the immune system, and the immune system forms an immune response to them. So that's called xeno, as in foreign, sialitis, inflammation related to sialic acids. Also, avoid meat and alcohol, but in addition to those things, for increasing the risk of gout, avoid excessive industrial fructose. And that would be like in a lot of these sweetened drinks, sweetened beverages. You have too much of those, they'll raise your uric acid, and that can worsen gout. Gout's sort of a separate subject. We're not going to go into any detail on it now, but just a few things to be aware of. There's a few things that can cause food allergies. Relatively uncommon stuff, but if all this other stuff hasn't resolved or significantly improved one's symptoms, you can try avoiding some of these foods. I think humans in the past before fire ate lots of fruit. Certainly they've always eaten a lot of vegetables. Color vision, I believe, is a large part of the reason we have it, is so you can see when a fruit is ripe. Avoid all animal foods. We talked about that. Relatively rare food sensitivities. Watch out potentially for tomatoes, wheat, especially, non-organic wheat, GMO wheat. Rye, soy, especially non-organic soy, citrus fruits, corn. Those are all things you can try to see if that helps you, if you haven't made good progress from the other things. But, of course, corn, organic corn, like from the old days and in rural places, Kenya and Tarahumara and northern Mexico, is a good thing. But nowadays, corn in the United States, tons of times it's all GMO, sprayed with atrazine, and I wouldn't eat it. Okay, this last thing here is just something I do, but the person doesn't have to do it. When I was in med school, one of my hobbies was I coached the wrestling team in a local college. And I sprained my knee. It wasn't that big of a deal, but I started walking backwards downstairs. You can look over your shoulder, and you can see the ground. You look down over your shoulder, not even over your shoulder, to the side of your shoulder. And so I just started doing that, and you sort of plantar flex, dorsiflex. It's more of a gradual, gentle thing. You put less weight on your knees, and I just started doing that, and I kind of like doing it. I've been doing that ever since, for many, many, many years. I never had a single problem from it. Yeah, you can hold the railing, you can touch the wall. I look down, I have no problem from it. I only walk backwards downstairs, and I have no problem with that for whatever. It's really good for me, and I do a lot of stairs for exercise. My wife was proud of herself. She wanted to negotiate who gets what bathroom. Okay, fine. So I knew she was going to end up winning. I didn't care. I'm like, yeah, you can have the ground floor bathroom. Fine. All right. I wanted to go up and downstairs because I get tons of exercise from that. It's just built into my day. And so you have to act like you're real upset about it, and if you think you got treated real unfairly, you get some points to negotiate something else. But I feel like I won that one. It's kind of rare for the husband to win stuff in marriage.